Welcome to the Painter and Decorator Red Seal exam practice. This video contains 130 practice questions to help you prepare for your certification exam. Let's begin. This exam covers the following major work activities: common occupational skills, prepares surfaces, prepares and applies residential, institutional, and commercial paints, coatings and finishes, prepares and applies wall coverings, prepares and applies wood finishes, and prepares and applies industrial paints and coatings. Before we start, if you're preparing for your Red Seal exam, hit subscribe. We cover over 50 trades. Question 1. What type of respirator is required when spraying two-component polyurethane coatings in an enclosed space? A. A half-face cartridge respirator with organic vapor filters. B. A disposable N95 particulate filtering facepiece respirator. C. A supplied air respirator or self-contained breathing apparatus. D. A powered air purifying respirator with dust pre-filters. The correct answer is C. A supplied air respirator or self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA, is required when spraying two-component polyurethane coatings in enclosed spaces. These coatings contain isocyanates, which are highly toxic and can cause severe respiratory sensitization. Cartridge respirators do not provide adequate protection against isocyanate vapors at the concentrations found in enclosed spray environments. Provincial occupational health and safety regulations and product safety data sheets mandate supplied air protection for isocyanate exposure. Question 2. When selecting chemical-resistant gloves for handling methyl ethyl ketone, MEK, solvent, which glove material provides the best protection? A. Butyl rubber gloves rated for ketone and ester solvents. B. Natural rubber latex gloves rated for general chemical use. C. Polyvinyl chloride gloves rated for acid and base contact. D. Neoprene rubber gloves rated for petroleum-based products. The correct answer is A. Butyl rubber gloves provide the best protection against methyl ethyl ketone, MEK, and other ketone solvents. Butyl rubber has superior resistance to permeation by ketones and esters, as confirmed by glove manufacturer chemical resistance charts and product safety data sheets. Latex, PVC, and neoprene gloves degrade rapidly when exposed to ketone solvents and do not provide adequate barrier protection. Question 3. What is the correct procedure for managing solvent-soaked rags at the end of a workday to prevent spontaneous combustion? A. Hang the rags on a clothesline outdoors to allow full air drying. B. Place the rags in a listed self-closing metal waste container. C. Seal the rags inside a plastic garbage bag and place in regular waste. D. Rinse the rags thoroughly with water and store in a ventilated bin. The correct answer is B. Solvent-soaked rags must be placed in a listed self-closing metal waste container to prevent spontaneous combustion. This is required by the National Fire Code of Canada and provincial fire regulations. Self-closing metal containers limit the oxygen supply and contain any heat buildup from oxidation. Rags soaked in drying oils or solvents can self-ignite through exothermic oxidation if left exposed to air in piles or enclosed in plastic bags. Question 4. What is the minimum percentage of the lower explosive limit, LEL, at which work must stop in a confined space being painted? A. 25% of the lower explosive limit of the vapor present. B. 10% of the lower explosive limit of the vapor present. C. 50% of the lower explosive limit of the vapor present. D. 5% of the lower explosive limit of the vapor present. The correct answer is B. Work must stop when atmospheric monitoring detects vapor concentrations at 10% of the lower explosive limit, LEL. Provincial occupational health and safety confined space regulations require continuous atmospheric monitoring during painting operations, and 10% LEL is the action level at which work must cease and ventilation must be increased. This threshold provides a sufficient safety margin below the actual explosive concentration. Question 5. What is the recommended solvent for cleaning an airless spray pump and hoses after applying alkyd-based enamel paint? A. Denatured alcohol followed by a clean water rinse through the system. B. Acetone flushed at low pressure through the spray tip and guard. C. Lacquer thinner pumped through the system at maximum fluid pressure. D. Mineral spirits circulated through the pump and hose assembly. The correct answer is D. Mineral spirits is the recommended solvent for cleaning airless spray equipment after applying alkyd-based enamels. Mineral spirits effectively dissolves alkyd resins without damaging pump packings, seals, or hose linings. Equipment manufacturers specify mineral spirits for alkyd cleanup because it is compatible with standard airless spray system components. Acetone and lacquer thinner can damage seals and gaskets in most airless pump assemblies. Question 6. What is the correct procedure for storing natural bristle brushes overnight between coats of oil-based varnish? A. Clean the brush in mineral spirits and wrap tightly in plastic film. B. Hang the brush dry in open air to allow partial solvent evaporation. C. Place the brush flat on a shelf with bristles wrapped in damp cloth. D. Suspend the bristles in the matching solvent inside a sealed container. The correct answer is D. Suspending the bristles in the matching solvent inside a sealed container is the correct overnight storage method for natural bristle brushes between coats of oil-based varnish. The brush is hung so bristles do not touch the bottom and bend, while the solvent prevents the varnish from curing in the bristles. A sealed container minimizes solvent evaporation. This method preserves brush shape and softness for the next application. Question 7. When using a manual chain hoist to lift a 5-gallon pail of coating to an elevated work platform, what must be verified first? A. The coating temperature is within the manufacturer's application range for this application method. B. The hoist is anchored to a rated structural support point above the lift. C. The chain links are lubricated with light machine oil before each use. D. The pail lid is removed to reduce the total weight being hoisted up. The correct answer is B. Before using a manual chain hoist, the painter must verify that the hoist is anchored to a rated structural support point directly above the intended lift path. An inadequate anchor point can fail under load, causing the hoist and load to fall. Canadian safety standards and provincial occupational health and safety regulations require that all hoisting equipment be secured to engineered anchor points with a known load rating that exceeds the weight being lifted. Question 8. What is the correct setup angle for a straight extension ladder used to access a painting work area on a building exterior? A. The base should be placed at a distance equal to 1/3 of the working height for this application method. B. The base should be placed at a distance equal to 1/2 of the working height. C. The base should be placed at a distance equal to 1/4 of the working height. D. The base should be placed at a distance equal to 1/5 of the working height. The correct answer is C. The correct setup angle for a straight extension ladder follows the 4-2-1 rule. The base is placed at a horizontal distance equal to 1/4 of the working height from the wall. This creates an approximate 75-degree angle, which provides the optimal balance between stability and load-bearing capacity. Canadian portable ladder safety standards and provincial occupational health and safety regulations specify this ratio for safe ladder use. Question 9. What is the minimum required overlap distance for extension ladder fly sections when fully extended for a painting project? A. 2 rungs of overlap regardless of the total extended ladder length. B. 3 rungs of overlap when the ladder is extended beyond 11 meters. C. A distance equal to 10% of the overall extended ladder length. D. 1 rung of overlap for ladders under 6 meters in total extended length. The correct answer is B. Extension ladders extended beyond 11 meters, 36 feet, require a minimum of 3 rungs of overlap between fly sections. For ladders up to 11 meters, a minimum of 2 rungs is required. This overlap ensures structural integrity and safe load distribution. Canadian portable ladder safety standards specify these minimum overlap requirements to prevent the fly section from separating under load during use. Question 10. When erecting a frame scaffold for an exterior painting project, what must be installed at every second frame level at minimum? A. Adjustable base plates with locking screws on all 4 vertical posts. B. Toe boards along the full length of each side of the working platform. C. Outrigger brackets extending at least 600 mm beyond each frame. D. Cross braces connecting diagonally between opposing vertical standards. The correct answer is D. Cross braces connecting diagonally between opposing vertical standards must be installed at every second frame level at minimum when erecting frame scaffolding. Cross bracing provides lateral stability and prevents the scaffold from racking or collapsing sideways. Provincial occupational health and safety scaffold regulations and Canadian scaffold safety standards require cross bracing at regular intervals to maintain structural integrity throughout the scaffold height. Question 11. What information does Section 8 of a safety data sheet, provide to a painter working with hazardous coatings? A. Physical and chemical properties of the coating product formulation. B. First aid measures and emergency treatment for product exposure. C. Exposure controls and personal protection equipment recommendations. D. Ecological hazard information and environmental disposal requirements. The correct answer is C. Section 8 of a safety data sheet, covers exposure controls and personal protection. It specifies occupational exposure limits, OELs, engineering controls such as ventilation requirements, and recommended personal protective equipment including respirator type, glove material, and eye protection. Under Canadian hazardous product regulations, SDSs follow a standardized 16-section format aligned with the globally harmonized system, GHS. Question 12. When reading an architectural specification that calls for a level 4 drywall finish, what does this require the painter to verify? A. That only one coat of joint compound was applied over the tape joints. B. That all joints have been taped and received 3 separate coats of mud. C. That a skim coat of compound covers the entire wall surface uniformly. D. That fastener heads received a single coat of compound without sanding for this application method. The correct answer is B. A level 4 drywall finish requires that all joints are taped and have received 3 separate coats of joint compound, with sanding between coats. Fastener heads also receive 3 coats. This level is specified when flat paints or light textures will be applied. The painter must verify this finish quality before applying coatings, as insufficient drywall finishing leads to visible joint banding and fastener shadowing under paint. Question 13. When estimating paint quantity for an interior project, what spreading rate does a painter typically use for standard latex wall paint? A. Approximately 6 to 7 square meters per liter on smooth drywall surfaces for this application method. B. Approximately 14 to 16 square meters per liter on porous masonry block. C. Approximately 9 to 11 square meters per liter on smooth drywall surfaces. D. Approximately 3 to 4 square meters per liter on new unpainted plaster. The correct answer is C. Standard latex wall paint has a typical spreading rate of approximately 9 to 11 square meters per liter, 350 to 450 square feet per gallon, on smooth, sealed drywall surfaces. This rate is used by painters to calculate material quantities for project estimating and procurement. Actual coverage varies with surface porosity, texture, and application method. Manufacturer technical data sheets provide product-specific spreading rates. Question 14. When planning the sequence of work for a multi-room interior repaint, which area should the painter typically complete first? A. The ceilings in all rooms before proceeding to any wall or trim surfaces. B. The largest room to establish the dominant color throughout the project. C. The room closest to the main entrance to create immediate visual impact. D. The room farthest from the entry to maximize available drying and curing time. The correct answer is A. The ceilings in all rooms should be completed first when planning a multi-room interior repaint. Working from top to bottom prevents drips and overspray from ceiling work from landing on freshly painted walls and trim. This is a fundamental painting sequence: ceilings first, then walls, then trim and doors, then final touch-ups. Planning the work in this order minimizes rework and produces a cleaner finished result. Question 15. What is the minimum ambient temperature recommended by most manufacturers for applying exterior latex paint in Canadian conditions? A. 15 degrees Celsius and rising, with no rain expected within 48 hours. B. 5 degrees Celsius and steady, with relative humidity below 50%. C. 10 degrees Celsius and rising, with no frost expected within 24 hours. D. 20 degrees Celsius and falling, with direct sun on the painted surface. The correct answer is C. Most manufacturers recommend a minimum ambient temperature of 10 degrees Celsius and rising for applying exterior latex paint, with no frost expected within 24 hours of application. Below this temperature, latex paint film formation is impaired because the polymer particles cannot coalesce properly, resulting in poor adhesion, cracking, and reduced durability. This guideline is consistent across major Canadian paint manufacturer technical data sheets. Question 16. What is the correct method for protecting hardwood flooring during an interior painting project using drop protection? A. Lay single-layer plastic sheeting taped at the baseboards and seams. B. Spread corrugated cardboard sheets across the floor and tape all seams. C. Lay canvas drop cloths over the flooring and tape at the baseboards. D. Apply a peelable liquid floor protector directly onto the hardwood surface. The correct answer is C. Canvas drop cloths laid over hardwood flooring and taped at the baseboards provide the best protection during interior painting. Canvas absorbs paint drips and spills rather than allowing them to pool and spread, unlike plastic sheeting which creates a slippery surface and lets paint migrate. Canvas also stays in place better, resists tearing, and can be reused. Taping at baseboards prevents paint from seeping underneath to the floor surface. Question 17. When storing partially used cans of latex paint for future touch-up work, what is the recommended practice to preserve the paint? A. Transfer the paint to a larger container to increase the air space above. B. Seal the lid tightly and store the can inverted in a cool, dry location. C. Add a thin layer of mineral spirits on top of the paint before sealing. D. Stir the paint vigorously and leave the lid loosely placed on the can. The correct answer is B. Sealing the lid tightly and storing the can upside down in a cool, dry location is the recommended method for preserving partially used latex paint. Inverting the can creates an airtight seal as the paint itself blocks any gaps around the lid, preventing air from entering and causing the paint to skin over or dry out. A cool, dry location prevents freezing and excessive heat that would degrade the paint's properties. Question 18. What test method does a painter use to determine the moisture content of a concrete floor slab before applying an epoxy floor coating? A. A visual inspection for dark spots indicating moisture accumulation areas. B. A calcium chloride moisture emission test placed on the slab surface. C. A ball bounce test to measure surface hardness and concrete slab density. D. A tape adhesion test using pressure-sensitive tape pressed to the surface. The correct answer is B. A calcium chloride moisture emission test is the standard method for determining moisture vapor emission rate from concrete floor slabs before applying epoxy coatings. A measured quantity of calcium chloride is sealed under a plastic dome on the slab surface for 60 to 72 hours, then weighed to determine moisture loss. Excessive moisture vapor emission causes epoxy coatings to blister, delaminate, or fail to cure properly. Question 19. What is the term for the condition where pigment has settled to the bottom of a paint can and formed a hard, dense layer? A. Livering, where the paint gels into a thick rubbery semi-solid mass. B. Skinning, where a dried film forms across the top surface of the paint. C. Flooding, where one pigment separates and rises to the surface layer. D. Caking, where pigment settles and compacts into a dense hard layer. The correct answer is D. Caking is the condition where pigment settles to the bottom of a paint container and compacts into a hard, dense layer that is difficult or impossible to redisperse by stirring. This differs from normal settling, which can be remixed. Caking typically results from prolonged storage, excessive heat, or formulation instability. Paint exhibiting severe caking should not be used because uniform pigment distribution cannot be restored. Question 20. A painter notices that a recently applied exterior latex topcoat is showing visible brush marks and poor leveling. What is the most likely cause of this defect? A. The primer coat underneath was applied too thickly and not fully cured. B. The surface was contaminated with a thin film of silicone-based residue. C. The topcoat was thinned excessively with water before the application. D. The paint was applied in direct sunlight causing rapid surface drying. The correct answer is D. Applying exterior latex paint in direct sunlight is the most likely cause of visible brush marks and poor leveling. Direct sunlight heats the substrate and accelerates surface drying, causing the paint film to set before it has time to flow and level. This prevents brush marks from smoothing out naturally. The Red Seal Occupational Standard and paint manufacturer guidelines recommend avoiding application in direct sunlight and working on the shaded side of the building when possible. Question 21. A client requests a color change after the primer and first topcoat have already been applied. What should the painter do first? A. Strip the existing primer and topcoat down to bare substrate immediately. B. Document the change order including additional material and labor costs. C. Apply the new color directly over the existing topcoat without priming. D. Advise the client to wait until the entire project is finished to evaluate. The correct answer is B. Documenting the change order including additional material and labor costs is the first step when a client requests a color change after work has begun. A written change order protects both the painter and the client by clearly defining the scope change, revised timeline, and associated costs before additional work proceeds. Professional communication and documentation practices are essential trade skills outlined in the Red Seal Occupational Standard for managing project changes. Question 22. What is the primary hazard associated with dry scraping or sanding paint on pre-1978 residential buildings in Canada? A. Release of volatile organic compounds that create immediate fire risk. B. Exposure to lead-containing dust from deteriorated lead-based paint. C. Generation of crystalline silica particles from the substrate below. D. Production of isocyanate vapors from aged polyurethane clear coats. The correct answer is B. Exposure to lead-containing dust is the primary hazard when dry scraping or sanding paint on pre-1978 buildings. Lead-based paint was commonly used in Canada before federal regulations restricted its use. Disturbing lead paint creates fine dust particles that pose serious health risks through inhalation and ingestion. Provincial occupational health and safety regulations and Health Canada guidelines require lead-safe work practices, containment, HEPA filtration, and air monitoring. Question 23. What is the correct procedure for using a chemical paint stripper to remove multiple layers of oil-based paint from wood trim? A. Thin the stripper with mineral spirits and brush a single light coat. B. Heat the surface first with a heat gun then apply the stripper quickly. C. Apply a thick even coat, cover with polyethylene, and allow dwell time. D. Sand the surface to 120 grit first then apply stripper to the residue. The correct answer is C. Applying a thick even coat of chemical stripper, covering with polyethylene sheeting, and allowing the recommended dwell time is the correct procedure. The thick application and plastic cover prevent premature evaporation of the active solvents, allowing the stripper to penetrate and soften all paint layers. Manufacturer instructions specify dwell times ranging from 30 minutes to 24 hours depending on the product and number of layers. Question 24. When removing vinyl wall covering from drywall, what technique minimizes damage to the paper face of the gypsum board? A. Peel the vinyl layer dry at a low angle then steam off the remaining backing. B. Score the vinyl deeply with a razor blade then peel from top to bottom. C. Spray the entire surface with hot water and scrape immediately with force. D. apply a penetrating enzyme solvent to dissolve the vinyl-facing material. The correct answer is A. Peeling the vinyl layer dry at a low, consistent angle removes the vinyl face without tearing the drywall paper, then steam is applied to soften and remove the remaining paper backing and adhesive. This two-step approach minimizes moisture damage to the gypsum board. Deep scoring with a razor can cut through the drywall paper face, and excessive water saturation can delaminate the gypsum board paper. Question 25. What cleaning solution is recommended for removing grease and oil contamination from surfaces before applying primer? A. Undiluted household bleach applied with a scrub brush and rinsed thoroughly for this application method. B. A mixture of vinegar and baking soda applied as a paste to the surface. C. Concentrated muriatic acid solution diluted to 10% strength maximum. D. A trisodium phosphate, TSP, solution mixed with warm water at the label rate. The correct answer is D. A trisodium phosphate, TSP, solution mixed with warm water is the recommended cleaning agent for removing grease, oil, and surface contamination before priming. TSP is an effective degreaser that also lightly etches glossy surfaces to improve adhesion. It is widely specified by paint manufacturers in their surface preparation instructions. TSP substitutes are available in jurisdictions where phosphate use is restricted for environmental reasons. Question 26. What type of primer is recommended for sealing knots and tannin-rich areas on bare softwood trim before painting? A. A water-based acrylic latex primer tinted to match the final topcoat color. B. A pigmented shellac-based primer formulated for stain-blocking applications. C. A penetrating oil-based wood conditioner that soaks into the end grain. D. A high-build alkyd undercoater designed for filling open wood grain pores. The correct answer is B. A pigmented shellac-based primer is recommended for sealing knots and tannin-rich areas on bare softwood. Shellac-based primers provide superior stain blocking that prevents tannin and resin bleed-through from knots in species like pine, spruce, and cedar. Unlike latex or alkyd primers, shellac creates an impermeable barrier against both water-soluble and oil-soluble stains. Major paint manufacturers specify shellac primers for this specific application. Question 27. When priming new drywall that will receive a flat latex finish, what is the correct application technique for PVA drywall primer? A. Apply one even coat by roller at the recommended spread rate and thickness. B. Spray the primer at 50% overlap and allow a 24-hour dry time. C. Apply 2 thin coats by brush, sanding lightly between each coat applied for this application method. D. Roll the primer at double the normal spread rate to fill the paper pores. The correct answer is A. Applying one even coat of PVA drywall primer by roller at the manufacturer's recommended spread rate is the correct technique. PVA primer is specifically formulated to seal the porous paper face of drywall in a single coat, providing a uniform surface for topcoat adhesion. Over-application wastes material and extends drying time without improving performance. The roller provides even coverage and works the primer into the paper surface. Question 28. What grit range of sandpaper is considered appropriate for scuff sanding a cured alkyd enamel surface between coats? A. 40 to 60 grit sandpaper to cut through the hard enamel surface quickly. B. 320 to 400 grit sandpaper to produce a polished and semi-glossy finish. C. 150 to 220 grit sandpaper to create a fine mechanical tooth for adhesion. D. 80 to 100 grit sandpaper to remove orange peel texture from the coating for this application method. The correct answer is C. A grit range of 150 to 220 is appropriate for scuff sanding a cured alkyd enamel surface between coats. This range creates a fine mechanical tooth that promotes intercoat adhesion without cutting too deeply into the existing film. Coarser grits, 40 to 100, would leave visible scratch marks through the topcoat, while finer grits, 320 to 400, would not provide adequate surface profile for adhesion. Question 29. When applying paintable acrylic latex caulking to an interior window frame joint, what tool technique produces the best finish? A. Apply the caulk, then immediately smooth it with a damp cloth pulled along the bead. B. Apply a thick bead, then tool it with a wet finger at a consistent angle and speed. C. Force the caulk deep into the joint, then leave the surface untouched to self-level. D. Fill the joint in 2 thin layers with a 24-hour cure time between applications. The correct answer is B. Applying a bead of caulk and then tooling it with a wet finger at a consistent angle and speed produces the best finish on interior window frame joints. The wet finger smooths the caulk, pushes it into the joint for full contact with both surfaces, and creates a concave profile that sheds water and accepts paint evenly. This is the standard professional technique for paintable interior caulking applications. Question 30. What type of caulking is required for exterior joints that will be exposed to prolonged ultraviolet radiation and weather? A. Butyl rubber caulking that remains permanently flexible in cold temperatures. B. Acrylic latex caulking that can be painted within 1 hour of application. C. High-performance polyurethane sealant rated for exterior weather exposure. D. Oil-based glazing compound designed for single-pane window installation work. The correct answer is C. High-performance polyurethane sealant rated for exterior weather exposure is required for joints exposed to prolonged ultraviolet radiation and weather cycling. Polyurethane sealants maintain flexibility, adhesion, and UV resistance over decades of exterior exposure. They are specified by building envelope consultants and paint manufacturers for exterior joints that undergo thermal movement. Question 31. What is the maximum moisture content recommended for bare exterior wood siding before applying an oil-based primer coat? A. A moisture content reading of 25% or less on a pin-type meter. B. A moisture content reading of 15% or less on a pin-type meter. C. A moisture content reading of 8% or less on a pin-type meter. D. A moisture content reading of 19% or less on a pin-type meter. The correct answer is B. A moisture content of 15% or less is the maximum recommended for bare exterior wood before applying oil-based primer. At higher moisture levels, the water in the wood migrates outward as the substrate dries, pushing against the paint film and causing blistering, peeling, and adhesion failure. Paint manufacturers and the Red Seal Occupational Standard specify moisture testing with a pin-type meter before coating exterior wood substrates. Question 32. What treatment should be applied to bare cedar siding that is showing gray weathering and mill glaze before it receives primer? A. Apply a coat of boiled linseed oil to restore the natural cedar color first. B. Power wash at 3000 psi with a 0-degree nozzle to strip the gray layer off. C. Apply a dark-tinted stain-blocking primer directly over the gray weathering. D. Sand with 80 grit paper or use a wood brightener to remove gray fibers and glaze. The correct answer is D. Sanding with 80 grit paper or applying a wood brightener solution removes gray weathered fibers and mill glaze from bare cedar, exposing fresh wood for primer adhesion. Mill glaze is a hardened surface layer created during planing that resists paint penetration. Gray weathering indicates UV-degraded wood fibers that provide poor adhesion. Both conditions must be addressed before priming to prevent premature coating failure on cedar siding. Question 33. What is the correct method for filling a nail hole in primed wood trim that will receive a semi-gloss enamel topcoat? A. Fill with exterior grade wood putty and sand flush before the primer coat. B. Press lightweight vinyl spackling compound into the hole and sand smooth when dry. C. Use a caulking gun to inject acrylic caulk into each nail hole before sanding. D. Leave nail holes unfilled and rely on 2 thick coats of paint to fill them. The correct answer is B. Pressing lightweight vinyl spackling compound into the nail hole and sanding smooth when dry is the correct method for filling nail holes in primed interior wood trim. Vinyl spackling dries hard, sands easily, and accepts paint without showing through a semi-gloss enamel finish. It should be applied after the primer coat so the surrounding wood is sealed, preventing the filler from staining. Question 34. What type of filler is best suited for repairing a deep gouge in an exterior wood window sill before priming? A. Interior-grade lightweight spackling compound applied in a single thick layer. B. Automotive body filler spread thinly and sanded after a 10-minute cure time. C. A 2-part epoxy wood filler that cures hard and resists moisture penetration. D. Pre-mixed latex wood filler applied in layers no thicker than 3 mm each. The correct answer is C. A 2-part epoxy wood filler is best suited for repairing deep gouges in exterior wood surfaces such as window sills. Epoxy fillers cure to a waterproof, dimensionally stable mass that resists moisture, temperature cycling, and UV exposure. Unlike interior spackling or latex fillers, epoxy fillers will not shrink, crack, or absorb moisture in exterior applications. Question 35. A painter discovers soft, punky wood around the base of an exterior door frame during surface preparation. What is the best course of action? A. Sand the soft wood aggressively to reach solid material, then prime immediately. B. Apply 2 heavy coats of oil-based primer to seal and strengthen the soft wood. C. Consolidate the damaged wood with a liquid epoxy hardener before filling and priming. D. Cover the area with exterior-grade caulking and paint over it with 2 top coats. The correct answer is C. Consolidating the damaged wood with a liquid epoxy hardener is the best course of action for soft, punky wood. The epoxy hardener penetrates into the deteriorated wood fibers, binding them together and restoring structural integrity. After the hardener cures, the area can be filled with epoxy filler, shaped, primed, and painted. Simply priming or caulking over damaged wood does not address the underlying decay. Question 36. What mechanical surface preparation method is used to create a profile on concrete floors for industrial coating adhesion? A. Shot blasting using steel shot propelled at high velocity across the concrete. B. Flame cleaning using a propane torch to burn off surface contaminants quickly. C. Needle gun scaling followed by wire brush cleaning of the entire floor area. D. Hydroblasting with ultra-high pressure water above 20,000 psi on the surface. The correct answer is A. Shot blasting is the mechanical surface preparation method used to create a profile on concrete floors for industrial coating adhesion. Steel shot is propelled at high velocity onto the concrete surface by a centrifugal wheel inside a self-contained machine that also vacuums up the shot and debris. Shot blasting produces consistent surface profiles measured by ICRI concrete surface profile, CSP, comparators. Question 37. When using an angle grinder with a diamond cup wheel to prepare a concrete wall for coating, what safety precaution is essential? A. Using a HEPA-filtered vacuum shroud attachment to capture respirable silica dust. B. Wearing leather work gloves to protect hands from heat generated by grinding. C. Applying water to the surface continuously to prevent diamond wheel overheating for this application method. D. Keeping the grinder moving at all times to avoid creating low spots in concrete. The correct answer is A. Using a HEPA-filtered vacuum shroud attachment to capture respirable crystalline silica dust is essential when grinding concrete. Concrete contains crystalline silica, and grinding generates fine dust that causes silicosis, an irreversible lung disease. Canadian provincial occupational health and safety regulations have adopted strict silica exposure limits, and dust control using HEPA-filtered local exhaust ventilation is the primary engineering control required. Question 38. What is the purpose of acid etching a concrete floor with muriatic acid solution before applying a floor coating system? A. To permanently change the concrete color from gray to a lighter shade of white. B. To increase the compressive strength of the concrete slab by 10% minimum. C. To open the pores and create a surface profile for mechanical coating adhesion. D. To neutralize excess alkalinity so the concrete reaches a pH level below 3. The correct answer is C. Acid etching with muriatic, hydrochloric acid solution opens the pores and creates a surface profile on smooth concrete, similar to medium grit sandpaper texture. This profile provides mechanical adhesion for floor coatings. The acid reacts with the cement paste, dissolving the smooth surface layer, lands, to expose aggregate and create a rough texture. After etching, the surface must be thoroughly neutralized and rinsed before coating. Question 39. After acid etching a concrete garage floor, what must be done before applying an epoxy floor coating to the surface? A. Apply a coat of polyvinyl acetate, PVA, sealer to lock in the acid residue. B. Let the acid dry naturally on the surface so it continues working on the concrete. C. Sand the etched surface with 120 grit paper to remove any remaining loose material. D. Neutralize the acid with a baking soda solution, rinse clean, and allow to dry. The correct answer is D. After acid etching, the concrete must be neutralized with a baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, solution, rinsed thoroughly with clean water, and allowed to dry completely. Residual acid left on the surface prevents proper coating adhesion and can continue to degrade the concrete. Epoxy manufacturers require a clean, neutral pH surface for proper chemical bonding. Question 40. What is the correct procedure for repairing a hairline crack in a concrete block wall before applying a masonry primer? A. Fill the crack with hydraulic cement forced in under pressure with a grout bag. B. Ignore hairline cracks as the primer and paint system will bridge them completely. C. Spread a thin layer of Portland cement paste across the entire wall surface area. D. Route the crack wider with a grinder, fill with elastomeric sealant, and prime over it. The correct answer is D. Routing the hairline crack wider with a grinder to create a channel, filling with elastomeric sealant, and priming over the repair is the correct procedure. Routing creates a uniform channel that allows the sealant to bond to both sides of the crack and flex with thermal movement. Elastomeric sealants maintain flexibility and accommodate the movement that caused the crack. Question 41. According to SSPC standards, what surface preparation grade requires removal of virtually all rust, mill scale, and coatings to bare metal? A. SSPCSP3 power tool cleaning removing loose rust and scale from the surface. B. SSPCSP10 near white blast cleaning requiring 95% bare metal minimum. C. SSPCSP6 commercial blast cleaning requiring 66% bare metal minimum. D. SSPCSP2 hand tool cleaning removing only loose and flaking material present. The correct answer is B. SSPCSP10 near white blast cleaning requires removal of virtually all rust, mill scale, paint, and coatings, leaving at least 95% of the surface as bare metal with a uniform metallic color. This is one of the highest preparation grades specified for industrial coating systems. The SSPC and NACE International, now AMPP, jointly publish these surface preparation standards used across the Canadian industrial painting sector. Question 42. What is the correct sequence for preparing a rusted exterior steel handrail for repainting with an alkyd enamel system? A. Power tool clean to SSPCSP3, apply rust inhibitive primer, then apply top coat. B. Apply rust converter, wait 1 hour, then apply top coat directly over the converter. C. Wash with detergent, rinse with water, then apply 2 coats of top coat directly. D. Sand lightly with 320 grit, wipe with a tack cloth, then apply the finish coat. The correct answer is A. Power tool cleaning to SSPCSP3, followed by a rust inhibitive primer and then the top coat, is the correct preparation sequence for a rusted steel handrail. SSPCSP3 requires removal of loose rust, mill scale, and old paint using power tools such as grinders, wire brushes, and needle guns. The rust inhibitive primer provides corrosion protection, while the alkyd enamel topcoat provides weather resistance and color. Question 43. What surface preparation is required for new galvanized steel before applying a coating to prevent peeling and delamination? A. Treatment with a proprietary galvanized metal etch primer or wash primer coat. B. Heavy abrasive blasting to SSPCSP5 white metal to remove all zinc plating. C. Application of a hot phosphoric acid wash to completely strip the zinc coating. D. Immediate application of a high-build alkyd primer without any surface treatment. The correct answer is A. New galvanized steel requires treatment with a galvanized metal etch primer, also called a wash primer or vinyl butyral primer, before top coating. The etch primer contains phosphoric acid that chemically reacts with the zinc surface, creating a zinc phosphate conversion layer that promotes adhesion. Without this treatment, coatings peel from the passive zinc oxide layer on galvanized steel. Question 44. A painter notices flash rusting appearing on a steel surface within hours of abrasive blasting on a humid summer day. What should be done? A. Proceed with primer application immediately as flash rust indicates a clean surface. B. Reblast the entire surface to white metal, then wait for drier weather conditions. C. Apply a flash rust tolerant primer designed to encapsulate light surface oxidation. D. Apply a layer of boiled linseed oil to the surface to prevent further oxidation. The correct answer is C. Applying a flash rust tolerant primer designed to encapsulate light surface oxidation is the appropriate solution. Flash rust occurs when freshly blasted steel is exposed to high humidity, and it forms rapidly in Canadian summer conditions. Flash rust tolerant primers are formulated to penetrate and bond through light surface oxidation. The SSPC and coating manufacturers recognize flash rust tolerant primers as an accepted solution. Question 45. What is the correct method for filling a dent in a painted steel door before refinishing with an enamel coating system? A. Apply auto body filler, shape with a rasp, sand smooth, prime and top coat the repair. B. Hammer the dent out from the back side, then apply primer directly over the area. C. Fill the dent with paintable caulking, smooth with a putty knife, then top coat it. D. Apply multiple coats of high-build primer into the dent until the surface is level for this application method. The correct answer is A. Applying auto body filler, polyester filler, shaping with a rasp or file, sanding smooth, then priming and top coating is the correct method for repairing a dent in a steel door. Auto body filler bonds well to clean metal, can be shaped to match the surrounding contour, and sands to a smooth finish that is invisible under paint. Question 46. When repairing a localized area of coating damage on a steel pipe in an industrial facility, what procedure ensures proper adhesion? A. Apply the top coat only to the damaged area without feathering into the existing coat. B. Scrape loose paint and prime the bare spot without overlapping onto surrounding paint. C. Feather sand the edges of the existing coating, spot prime bare metal, then top coat. D. Remove all coating from the entire pipe length and recoat from bare metal completely. The correct answer is C. Feather sanding the edges of the existing coating to create a gradual transition, spot priming the exposed bare metal, and then top coating over the repair with overlap onto the sound existing coating is the correct procedure. Feathering eliminates a hard edge that would be visible through the top coat and provides a smooth transition. Question 47. What is the recommended repair material for patching a 50 mm hole in an existing plaster wall before painting? A. Quick-setting patching plaster applied in layers no deeper than 12 mm. B. Pre-mixed lightweight spackling compound applied in a single thick application. C. Standard drywall joint compound built up in thin coats over mesh tape backing. D. Setting type joint compound, hot mud, applied in a single pass and sanded flat. The correct answer is D. Setting type joint compound, commonly called hot mud, is recommended for patching a 50 mm hole in plaster. It cures by chemical reaction rather than air drying, which allows it to be built up in thicker layers without excessive shrinkage or cracking. Setting type compounds are available in various set times, 5, 20, 45, 90 minutes, and provide a hard, durable repair that closely matches the strength of the surrounding plaster. Question 48. What is the correct repair procedure for a drywall area where the paper face has been torn and the gypsum core is exposed? A. Apply joint compound directly over the torn paper and sand smooth after drying fully. B. Glue the torn paper flat back down with white carpenter's glue and paint over it. C. Seal the exposed gypsum with a coat of shellac primer, skim with compound, then sand. D. Cut out the entire damaged drywall section and install a new piece with tape joints. The correct answer is C. Sealing the exposed gypsum core with a coat of shellac-based primer, then skim coating with joint compound and sanding smooth is the correct repair for torn drywall paper. The shellac primer seals the raw gypsum, preventing it from absorbing moisture from the compound and raising bubbles. Without sealing first, the compound bonds poorly to the fuzzy gypsum surface. Question 49. A painter notices a recurring crack forming along a drywall sealing joint after each repair attempt. What is the most likely underlying cause? A. Structural movement or truss uplift is causing stress at the sealing joint location. B. The painter is using the wrong type of sandpaper grit between compound coats. C. The primer was not fully dry before the top coat was applied over the repaired joint. D. The joint compound brand is incompatible with the existing drywall paper facing type. The correct answer is A. Structural movement or truss uplift is the most likely cause of a recurring crack at a sealing joint. Truss uplift occurs when roof trusses bow upward in winter due to moisture differentials between the top and bottom cords, pulling the sealing drywall away from interior partition walls. No amount of taping and compounding will permanently fix a movement-caused crack. The correct solution involves floating the sealing drywall at partition walls. Question 50. When applying the final skim coat of joint compound on new drywall joints, what knife width produces the smoothest feathered transition? A 100 mm, 4-inch, joint knife for precise compound placement on each joint. B. A 200 mm, 8-inch, joint knife for the second coat application on flat joints. C. A 300 mm, 12-inch, finishing knife to feather compound wide beyond the joint. D. A 150 mm, 6-inch, joint knife to minimize sanding between compound coats. The correct answer is C. A 300 mm, 12-inch, finishing knife is used for the final skim coat on drywall joints. The wide blade feathers the compound far beyond the edges of the tape joint, creating a gradual transition that is invisible under paint. Each successive coat uses a wider knife, typically 100 mm for embedding tape, 200 mm for the second coat, and 300 mm or wider for the finish coat. If you're finding these questions helpful, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. It helps other apprentices find this resource too. Now let's continue. Question 51. What level of drywall finish is required when the specification calls for a gloss or semi-gloss enamel paint on walls? A. Level 2 finish with tape embedded and 1 coat of compound over joints and fasteners. B. Level 3 finish with tape embedded and 2 coats of compound over joints and fasteners. C. Level 4 finish with tape and 3 coats of compound but no skim coat on the surface. D. Level 5 finish with a skim coat of compound applied over the entire wall surface area. The correct answer is D. Level 5 finish with a full skim coat over the entire wall surface is required under gloss and semi-gloss enamel paints. The skim coat eliminates surface irregularities in texture and porosity that cause joint banding, fastener shadowing, and differential sheen under high reflectivity finishes. Lower finish levels without the skim coat leave subtle surface variations that become visible once a glossy or semi-glossy coating is applied. Question 52. What is the primary difference between an alkyd paint and a latex paint in terms of their binder chemistry? A. Alkyd paints use natural plant-based oils while latex uses synthetic rubber binders. B. Alkyd paints use a modified oil or resin binder while latex uses acrylic polymer emulsion. C. Alkyd paints dry by chemical oxidation while latex paints cure under ultraviolet light. D. Alkyd paints contain higher pigment volumes while latex paints rely on clear resin films for this application method. The correct answer is B. Alkyd paints use a modified oil or synthetic resin binder that cures by oxidative cross-linking with atmospheric oxygen, while latex paints use an acrylic or vinyl acrylic polymer emulsion carried in water. This fundamental difference in binder chemistry affects drying mechanism, odor, cleanup solvent, durability, and application properties. Understanding these differences is essential for selecting the correct coating system for each substrate and service condition. Question 53. When tinting a white base paint to match a custom color formula, what step must be completed before adding the tint colorants? A. Thoroughly stir or shake the base paint to ensure uniform consistency throughout. B. Add a flow additive to improve the colorant dispersion within the base paint. C. Thin the base paint by 10% with the appropriate solvent for the product for this application method. D. Apply a test patch of the untinted base directly on the surface for comparison. The correct answer is A. Thoroughly stirring or shaking the base paint to ensure uniform consistency is the essential first step before adding tint colorants. The base paint components settle during storage, and adding colorant to an unmixed base produces inaccurate color. Paint manufacturers require that the base be fully homogenized before tinting. Tinting machines shake the can after adding colorant, but manual tinting requires pre-mixing by the painter. Question 54. What is the correct method for straining paint before loading it into an airless sprayer to prevent tip clogging? A. Pass the paint through a fine mesh cone strainer into a clean 5-gallon pail. B. Pour the paint through cheesecloth draped loosely over the suction hose intake. C. Use a kitchen sieve to filter out large particles before pouring into the hopper. D. Add paint conditioner to dissolve any lumps rather than physically straining them. The correct answer is A. Passing the paint through a fine mesh cone strainer, typically 60 to 100 mesh, into a clean 5-gallon pail is the correct method for straining paint before airless spraying. Cone strainers are designed to fit standard pail openings and are available in mesh sizes matched to spray tip orifice sizes. Straining removes dried paint skins, debris, and lumps that would block the spray tip. This is standard practice specified by airless sprayer manufacturers. Question 55. What is the maximum volatile organic compound, VOC, limit for architectural interior flat latex paint under Canadian regulations? A. 450 grams per liter as specified by Environment and Climate Change Canada. B. 50 grams per liter as specified by Environment and Climate Change Canada. C. 250 grams per liter as specified by the Canadian Environmental Protection Act. D. 100 grams per liter as specified by provincial building codes across Canada. The correct answer is B. The maximum VOC limit for architectural interior flat latex paint is 50 grams per liter under the Volatile Organic Compound, VOC, concentration limits for architectural coatings regulations administered by Environment and Climate Change Canada. These regulations align with similar standards in the United States and are designed to reduce ground-level ozone formation. Different coating categories have different VOC limits based on their intended use. Question 56. When boxing multiple cans of the same color paint for a large wall, what is the purpose of this intermixing procedure? A. To reduce the viscosity of the paint so it can be applied more thinly on the wall. B. To activate the chemical hardener that is packaged separately in each individual can. C. To increase the volume of paint by incorporating air bubbles into the mixture batch. D. To ensure uniform color consistency by blending slight variations between batches. The correct answer is D. Boxing paint, intermixing multiple cans into a larger container, ensures uniform color consistency by blending any slight variations between cans. Even cans of the same color from the same batch can have minor tinting differences that become visible as lap marks when different cans are used on the same continuous wall surface. This is standard trade practice for any project requiring more than one can of paint on a single surface. Question 57. A painter opens a can of latex paint and notices a thick rubbery skin on the surface with the paint underneath appearing normal. What should be done? A. Stir the skin into the paint vigorously until it is fully reincorporate into the mix. B. Carefully remove the skin, strain the remaining paint, and check its consistency. C. Discard the entire can because the skinning indicates the paint has gone bad fully. D. Add warm water to dissolve the skin and thin the paint back to working consistency. The correct answer is B. Carefully removing the skin and straining the remaining paint through a mesh strainer is the correct approach. The paint underneath the skin is typically still usable if it has not gelled or developed an off odor. Straining removes any small pieces of skin or debris. Stirring the skin into the paint creates lumps that will not dissolve and will show in the finished surface. The paint should be tested for proper consistency and adhesion before use. Question 58. What is the primary advantage of using an acrylic latex paint over an alkyd enamel for interior residential wall applications? A. Acrylic latex produces a harder and more abrasion-resistant film than alkyd enamel. B. Acrylic latex has a higher gloss level than alkyd enamel at the same sheen category. C. Acrylic latex provides superior adhesion to glossy surfaces without sanding required. D. Acrylic latex has lower odor, faster dry time, and easier water cleanup than alkyd. The correct answer is D. Acrylic latex paint offers lower odor, faster dry time, and easier water cleanup compared to alkyd enamel for interior residential walls. Latex paints are water-based, eliminating the need for solvent cleanup and reducing occupant exposure to volatile organic compounds. These practical advantages, combined with modern acrylic formulations that match or exceed alkyd durability, have made latex the dominant choice for interior residential painting. Question 59. When preparing a two-component epoxy coating for application, what critical factor determines the usable working time of the mixed product? A. The ambient temperature and the batch size mixed together affect the pot life directly. B. The thickness of the film applied determines how long the coating remains workable. C. The brand and color of the epoxy coating affects the curing speed of the product. D. The size of the spray tip selected for application controls the available working time. The correct answer is A. The ambient temperature and batch size mixed together directly affect the pot life, usable working time, of two-component epoxy coatings. Higher temperatures accelerate the exothermic chemical reaction between resin and hardener, shortening pot life. Larger batch sizes generate more heat internally, also reducing working time. Epoxy manufacturer technical data sheets specify pot life at various temperatures, and painters must mix only quantities that can be applied within the pot life. Question 60. When installing fiberglass mesh reinforcement over a repaired crack before coating, how should the mesh be embedded? A. Staple the mesh to the substrate and apply the coating directly over the fasteners. B. Press the mesh into a wet coat of base coat compound and smooth flat with a knife. C. Apply adhesive spray to the back of the mesh and press it firmly onto dry substrate. D. Float the mesh loosely over the surface and rely on the topcoat to hold it in place. The correct answer is B. Pressing the fiberglass mesh into a wet coat of base coat compound and smoothing it flat with a wide knife is the correct embedding procedure. The wet compound fills the mesh openings and bonds it to the substrate, creating a reinforced layer that resists future cracking. The mesh must be fully embedded with no wrinkles or air pockets. A second coat of compound is applied over the embedded mesh and feathered smooth after it sets. Question 61. What type of reinforcing mesh is typically embedded in elastomeric coatings to bridge cracks on exterior stucco walls? A. Heavy gauge welded wire mesh designed for concrete reinforcement applications. B. Woven polyester fabric strips with a pressure-sensitive adhesive backing applied. C. Alkali-resistant fiberglass mesh tape in 100 or 150 mm widths for coatings. D. Self-adhesive aluminum foil tape rated for high-temperature duct sealing purposes for this application method. The correct answer is C. Alkali-resistant fiberglass mesh tape in 100 or 150 mm widths is embedded in elastomeric coatings to bridge and reinforce cracks on exterior stucco. The alkali resistance is critical because cementitious stucco creates a highly alkaline environment that would degrade standard fiberglass. The mesh distributes stress across the crack, preventing the coating from splitting as the crack moves with thermal expansion and contraction cycles. Question 62. When cutting in with a brush along a ceiling line before rolling walls, what brush technique produces the cleanest edge? A. Draw a steady line using the tapered tip of a quality angled sash brush with light pressure. B. Load the brush heavily and press firmly against the ceiling to create a thick line. C. Use the flat side of the brush at a steep angle to spread paint as widely as possible. D. Dab the brush tip repeatedly along the edge to stipple paint into the ceiling corner. The correct answer is A. Drawing a steady line using the tapered tip of a quality angled sash brush with light, consistent pressure produces the cleanest cut-in edge along a ceiling line. The angled bristle profile creates a fine point that allows precise placement of paint exactly at the color break. Light pressure prevents the bristles from splaying and depositing paint beyond the intended line. This is a fundamental brush technique in the painter's skill set. Question 63. What type of brush bristle material is recommended for applying oil-based alkyd enamel to interior woodwork trim? A. Synthetic nylon or polyester bristles designed for water-based latex paint only. B. Natural bristle, hog hair, brushes that hold oil-based paint and release smoothly. C. Foam pad applicators that eliminate all visible brush marks in the finished coating. D. Stainless steel wire bristle brushes that provide maximum paint pickup capacity. The correct answer is B. Natural bristle, hog hair, brushes are recommended for applying oil-based alkyd enamel. Natural bristles have microscopic splits, flags, at their tips that hold more paint and release it in a smooth, even film. They maintain their shape and stiffness in oil-based solvents. Synthetic bristles are preferred for water-based paints because natural bristles absorb water and become limp, losing their shape and paint-holding ability. Question 64. When applying alkyd enamel to a panel door with a brush, what painting sequence minimizes visible lap marks? A. Start with the door edges, then stiles, then rails, and finish with the panels last. B. Start with the panels, then rails, then stiles, and finish with the edges of the door. C. Start with the top rail, work downward through each horizontal rail to the bottom rail. D. Start with the hinge style, paint across to the lock style, and finish at the bottom. The correct answer is B. The correct sequence for brush painting a panel door is panels first, then horizontal rails, then vertical stiles, and finally the edges. This order ensures that drips from the recessed panels are picked up when painting the rails, and drips from the rails are picked up when painting the stiles. Working from the most recessed surfaces outward to the flat surfaces produces a smooth, lap mark-free finish. Question 65. What roller nap length is recommended for applying latex paint to smooth drywall walls for an even, consistent finish? A. 20 mm, 3/4 inch, nap for rough textured stucco and masonry block walls. B. 6 mm, 1/4 inch, foam roller nap for ultra-smooth high-gloss door surfaces. C. 10 to 15 mm, 3/8 to 1/2 inch, nap for standard smooth drywall surfaces. D. 25 mm, 1 inch, nap for heavily textured popcorn ceilings and rough surfaces. The correct answer is C. A 10 to 15 mm, 3/8 to 1/2 inch, roller nap is recommended for applying latex paint to smooth drywall walls. This nap length holds enough paint for good coverage while producing a fine, even stipple texture appropriate for residential and commercial interiors. Shorter naps leave insufficient paint, while longer naps create excessive stipple texture on smooth surfaces. Question 66. When rolling a large wall with latex paint, what technique prevents visible lap marks and roller edge lines? A. Maintain a wet edge by working in overlapping vertical sections from top to bottom. B. Apply paint in random diagonal strokes to break up any directional pattern visible. C. Roll each section completely dry before reloading the roller with fresh paint supply. D. Start in the center of the wall and work outward toward all four edges simultaneously. The correct answer is A. Maintaining a wet edge by working in overlapping vertical sections from top to bottom prevents visible lap marks and roller edge lines. The painter loads the roller, applies paint in a W or M pattern to distribute it, then lays off with light parallel strokes. Each new section slightly overlaps the wet edge of the previous section, ensuring seamless blending. If the edge dries before the next section is applied, a visible lap mark forms. Question 67. What problem occurs when a painter applies too much pressure while rolling paint onto a wall surface? A. The roller leaves heavy edge tracks and an uneven stipple texture on the surface. B. The paint dries faster than normal due to the increased friction heat generated. C. The wall surface absorbs too much paint causing the color to appear darker than intended. D. The roller nap compresses permanently and must be replaced after each wall section. The correct answer is A. Applying too much pressure while rolling causes the roller to leave heavy edge tracks, visible ridges of paint along the roller edges, and an uneven stipple texture. Excess pressure squeezes paint out from under the roller ends and compresses the nap unevenly, creating thick ridges and thin centers. Proper technique uses light, even pressure allowing the loaded nap to deposit paint uniformly across its full width. Question 68. When applying paint with a pad applicator along a straight edge such as a door casing, what technique ensures clean results? A. Load the pad heavily with paint and press it firmly against the edge at full width. B. Run the pad quickly along the edge in a single pass without stopping or lifting up. C. Angle the pad at 45 degrees to the surface and drag it slowly along the edge in sections. D. Guide the pad's built-in edge wheels or guide along the adjacent surface at steady speed. The correct answer is D. Guiding the pad applicator's built-in edge wheels or trim guide along the adjacent surface at a steady, consistent speed ensures clean, straight lines along door casings and other straight edges. The guide rides against the perpendicular surface while the pad deposits paint precisely along the edge. This tool is designed specifically for straight edge applications where brush cutting in would be slower. Question 69. What type of applicator is best suited for applying epoxy floor coating to a large commercial floor surface area? A. A natural bristle wall brush used in overlapping horizontal strokes across the floor. B. A standard paint roller with a phenolic resin core and solvent-resistant nap material for this application method. C. A foam brush applicator that eliminates all roller stipple marks from floor surfaces. D. A notched squeegee followed by a spike roller to level and release trapped air bubbles. The correct answer is D. A notched squeegee followed by a spike roller is the standard application method for epoxy floor coatings on large commercial floors. The notched squeegee distributes the epoxy at a controlled, uniform thickness across the floor. The spike roller is then passed over the surface to level out squeegee marks and release trapped air bubbles that would otherwise cure as visible pinholes in the finished floor. Question 70. What is the primary advantage of using an HVLP spray system compared to a conventional high-pressure spray gun? A. HVLP achieves higher transfer efficiency reducing overspray and material waste. B. HVLP operates at higher fluid pressure delivering thicker coats per spray pass. C. HVLP produces a finer atomization pattern that eliminates all orange peel texture. D. HVLP can spray thicker coatings without thinning while maintaining a smooth finish. The correct answer is A. HVLP, high volume low pressure, spray systems achieve higher transfer efficiency than conventional high pressure guns, meaning more paint reaches the surface and less is lost as overspray. HVLP typically achieves 65 to 85% transfer efficiency compared to 30 to 45% for conventional guns. This reduces material waste, lowers VOC emissions, and creates a healthier work environment. Canadian environmental regulations increasingly favor HVLP for these reasons. Question 71. What is the correct spray gun distance and angle for applying latex paint with an airless sprayer to achieve uniform coverage? A. Hold the gun 250 to 350 mm from the surface perpendicular to the surface. B. Hold the gun 450 to 600 mm from the surface angled upward at 30 degrees. C. Hold the gun 100 to 150 mm from the surface angled downward at 45 degrees. D. Hold the gun 500 to 750 mm from the surface tilted sideways at 15 degrees. The correct answer is A. The correct spray distance for an airless sprayer is 250 to 350 mm, 10 to 14 inches, from the surface, with the gun held perpendicular, at 90 degrees, to the surface. This distance produces optimal fan pattern coverage and film thickness. Too close creates runs and sags, too far creates dry spray and poor hiding. Angling the gun causes uneven paint distribution across the fan pattern width. Question 72. When spraying an exterior wall with an airless sprayer, what overlap percentage between passes prevents visible banding? A 10% overlap of each spray pass to minimize total paint consumption used. B. A 25% overlap to reduce the time required to complete the exterior wall area. C. A 50% overlap of each spray pass to ensure even coverage without banding. D. A 75% overlap of each spray pass to build maximum film thickness per coat. The correct answer is C. A 50% overlap between spray passes is the standard technique for preventing visible banding when spraying exterior walls. Each pass covers half the width of the previous pass, ensuring that every point on the surface receives paint from two overlapping passes. This produces uniform film thickness across the entire surface. Less overlap creates visible light and dark bands, while more overlap wastes material and builds excessive thickness. Question 73. While spraying an interior room, the painter notices the spray pattern has shifted from a full even fan to a heavy center pattern. What is the most likely cause? A. The spray tip is partially clogged with dried paint restricting the orifice opening. B. The air compressor has overheated and is delivering reduced air volume to the gun. C. The paint in the supply container has settled and the pigment is no longer suspended. D. The spray gun fluid needle is stuck open causing uncontrolled paint flow at the tip. The correct answer is A. A spray pattern that shifts from a full even fan to a heavy center pattern indicates a partially clogged spray tip. Dried paint or debris restricts the orifice opening, concentrating the paint stream in the center rather than distributing it across the full fan width. The standard troubleshooting procedure is to reverse the tip 180 degrees and trigger a short burst to clear the blockage, then reverse the tip back to spray position. Question 74. What does the spray tip size number 517 indicate on an airless spray tip used for residential painting? A 250 mm, 10-inch, fan width with a 0.017-inch orifice size for the paint. B. A 175 mm, 7-inch, fan width with a 0.051-inch orifice for heavy coatings. C. A 517 micron particle size suitable for fine latex paint atomization applications. D. The maximum fluid pressure inside that the tip can safely handle during spraying. The correct answer is A. The airless spray tip number 517 indicates two measurements. The first digit doubled gives the fan width, 5 times 2 is equal to 10 inches or 250 mm, and the last two digits give the orifice size in thousandths of an inch, 0.017 inch. A 517 tip produces a 250 mm wide fan with a 0.017 inch orifice, suitable for spraying latex wall paints. Understanding tip numbering is essential for selecting the correct tip for the paint type and surface being coated. Question 75. What safety procedure must be followed before changing the spray tip on a pressurized airless spray system? A. Increase the pressure to maximum to flush residual paint out of the tip assembly. B. Simply unscrew the tip guard while holding a rag over the tip to catch residual paint. C. Engage the trigger lock, turn off the pump, and relieve all fluid pressure at the gun. D. Disconnect the spray hose at the pump end and drain all paint out before tip removal. The correct answer is C. Before changing an airless spray tip, the trigger lock must be engaged, the pump turned off, and all fluid pressure relieved at the gun through the pressure relief procedure. Airless spray systems operate at pressures up to 3000 psi or higher, which can cause serious injection injuries if the tip is removed while pressurized. Injection injuries from airless spray guns are a recognized occupational hazard requiring immediate emergency medical treatment. Question 76. When applying a second coat of semi-gloss enamel to interior trim, what surface preparation is needed between coats? A. Strip the first coat completely and reapply primer before the second enamel coat. B. Lightly sand with 220 grit paper and remove dust with a tack cloth before recoating. C. Apply a liquid deglosser to chemically etch the surface without physical sanding. D. No preparation is needed if the second coat is applied within the recoat window time. The correct answer is B. Lightly sanding with 220 grit sandpaper and removing dust with a tack cloth is the standard preparation between coats of semi-gloss enamel on interior trim. Sanding creates a mechanical tooth for the second coat to grip, and the tack cloth removes all sanding dust that would cause nibs in the finish. This step is particularly important for semi-gloss and gloss finishes where any imperfection is highly visible under reflected light. Question 77. What decorative painting technique uses a crumpled rag to create a soft, mottled pattern in a wet glaze coat? A. Color washing, where diluted paint is brushed in random strokes over a base coat. B. Sponging, where a natural sea sponge is dabbed into wet paint to add color layers. C. Dragging, where a dry brush is pulled through wet glaze to create fine linear marks. D. Rag rolling, where a bunched cloth is rolled through wet glaze to lift a pattern. The correct answer is D. Rag rolling is the decorative painting technique where a crumpled or bunched cloth is rolled through a wet glaze coat to lift and create a soft, mottled pattern. The crumpled texture of the rag creates random, organic patterns in the glaze. Different fabric types, cheesecloth, cotton, chamois, produce different pattern effects. Rag rolling can be done as a subtractive technique, removing glaze, or an additive technique, applying glaze with the rag. Question 78. When creating a foam marble finish, what is applied over the veining to achieve the characteristic depth and translucency? A. A coat of flat latex paint that mutes the veining pattern to a subtle background. B. A single thick coat of high-gloss enamel to create maximum surface reflectivity only. C. A sprayed coat of metallic paint that adds shimmer and hides any veining imperfections. D. Multiple layers of thin transparent glaze blended and softened with a badger brush. The correct answer is D. Multiple layers of thin transparent glaze blended and softened with a badger hair softening brush create the characteristic depth and translucency of a foam marble finish. Each glaze layer adds color depth while maintaining transparency, mimicking the way light penetrates and reflects within natural marble. The badger brush softens edges between colors for a realistic, naturally blended appearance. Question 79. What adhesive material is used to attach gold leaf to a prepared surface during a gilding application? A. Gold size, which is a specialized slow-drying or quick-drying varnish-based adhesive. B. A standard contact cement applied to both the surface and the back of the gold leaf. C. A spray-on repositionable adhesive that allows the gold leaf to be moved after placing. D. White carpenter's glue thinned with water to a consistency that penetrates the leaf. The correct answer is A. Gold size is the specialized adhesive used to attach gold leaf to a surface during gilding. Gold size is available in oil-based formulations with varying drying times, 1 hour, 3 hour, 12 hour, and water-based formulations. The gold leaf is applied when the size reaches the proper tack stage, sticky enough to grip the leaf but not so wet that it saturates and dulls the metallic finish. Timing the application to the correct tack is a critical gilding skill. Question 80. When applying a stencil pattern to a wall, what technique prevents paint from bleeding under the stencil edges? A. Apply a heavy coat of paint with a loaded brush to fill the stencil openings quickly. B. Apply paint with a nearly dry stencil brush using a perpendicular dabbing motion only. C. Hold the stencil 25 mm away from the wall to create a soft shadow edge line. D. Use a spray gun at close range to force paint into every corner of the stencil design. The correct answer is B. Applying paint with a nearly dry stencil brush using a perpendicular dabbing, pouncing, motion prevents paint from bleeding under the stencil edges. The minimal paint on the brush and the straight-down dabbing action deposit paint only through the stencil openings without forcing it sideways under the edges. A loaded brush or angled strokes push paint under the stencil, creating blurred and uneven edges in the pattern. Question 81. When creating a knockdown textured finish on a ceiling, what is the correct timing for flattening the applied texture? A. Flatten the texture immediately after application while the compound is fully wet. B. Allow the texture to dry completely, then sand the peaks flat with a pole sander. C. Apply a second coat of texture over the first to naturally flatten the peak pattern. D. Flatten the texture when the peaks have partially dried and lost their wet sheen. The correct answer is D. The correct timing for knocking down, flattening, a textured ceiling finish is when the peaks have partially dried and lost their wet sheen but the material is still slightly damp and pliable. At this stage, a wide knockdown knife flattens the peaks without pulling or smearing the texture. Flattening too early smears the wet compound, and waiting too long produces rough, difficult to flatten peaks that break rather than flatten. Question 82. What is a multi-spec coating and where is it commonly applied in commercial and institutional buildings? A. A single-color flat latex paint applied in multiple thin coats for maximum hiding. B. A metallic powder coating baked onto metal surfaces for maximum corrosion resistance. C. A clear polyurethane topcoat with embedded reflective flakes for safety floor marking for this application method. D. A multicolor fleck coating sprayed to simulate granite or stone on walls and columns. The correct answer is D. A multi-spec, multicolor, coating is a sprayable product that contains multiple colored particles suspended in a clear base, producing a granite or stone-like finish in a single application. It is commonly used on commercial and institutional walls, columns, elevator lobbies, and corridors where a durable decorative finish is required. Multi-spec coatings hide surface imperfections and resist scuffing and staining in high-traffic areas. Question 83. What type of wall primer is required before hanging vinyl wall covering to ensure proper adhesion and future removability? A. A pigmented acrylic wall covering primer designed to seal and size the wall surface. B. A standard PVA drywall primer applied at the manufacturer's recommended coverage rate. C. An oil-based alkyd primer that seals the drywall paper and provides a hard base coat. D. A clear shellac-based sealer that penetrates into the drywall paper and gypsum core. The correct answer is A. A pigmented acrylic wall covering primer, also called primer sealer or wall size, is specifically formulated to seal and size wall surfaces before hanging vinyl wall covering. It seals the porous drywall surface to prevent adhesive from soaking in, and it creates a surface that allows future wall covering removal without damaging the drywall paper face. Standard primers do not provide the sizing properties needed for wall covering adhesion. Question 84. When laying out a wall for vinyl wall covering installation, where should the first plumb line be established? A. At the exact center of the longest wall in the room to balance the pattern equally. B. At the window wall where the strongest natural light reveals any pattern misalignment. C. At the starting point near a focal wall corner using a level or laser plumb line. D. At the door frame closest to the main entrance to ensure the best visual impression. The correct answer is C. The first plumb line should be established at the starting point near a focal wall corner using a level, plumb bob, or laser level. This ensures the first strip hangs perfectly vertical, which is critical because all subsequent strips align from this reference. Starting at a corner allows any pattern mismatch, which occurs where the last strip meets the first, to be located in the least visible corner of the room. Question 85. When cutting strips of patterned vinyl wall covering from the roll, how should the pattern matching be handled? A. Cut all strips to the same length and match the pattern on the wall during hanging. B. Cut strips from alternating rolls and reverse every second strip for a random look. C. Cut one strip at a time and hold each strip against the wall to check pattern alignment. D. Unroll adjacent strips on a flat table, match the pattern at the top, then cut to length. The correct answer is B. For straight match patterns, strips should be cut from alternating rolls, or using a reverse hanging technique where every second strip is flipped, to minimize waste and ensure consistent pattern alignment. However, for random match or texture patterns, strips are cut to room height plus allowance from a single roll sequentially. The specific technique depends on the pattern type specified by the manufacturer's hanging instructions printed on each roll. Question 86. What is the purpose of booking a pasted wall covering strip before hanging it on the wall? A. To allow the paste to penetrate and the material to expand uniformly before hanging. B. To allow the adhesive to begin drying so it becomes tacky for immediate wall contact. C. To fold the strip for easier transport from the pasting table to the installation wall. D. To compress air bubbles out of the paste layer before the strip is applied to the wall. The correct answer is A. Booking, folding the pasted strip paste to paste, allows the adhesive to penetrate the wall covering backing and the material to expand uniformly before hanging. If the wall covering is hung immediately after pasting, it continues to expand on the wall, causing bubbles, wrinkles, and seam gaps as the material shifts. The booking time specified by the manufacturer ensures dimensional stability before application. Question 87. When applying clay-based heavy-duty adhesive for commercial vinyl wall covering, what is the correct application method? A. Brush a thin coat of adhesive onto the back of each strip using a wide paste brush. B. Spray adhesive onto both the wall and the back of the wall covering simultaneously. C. Roll adhesive onto the wall with a short nap paint roller at a heavy application rate. D. Apply adhesive to the wall using a notch trowel at the manufacturer's specified notch size. The correct answer is D. Clay-based heavy-duty adhesive for commercial vinyl wall covering is applied to the wall using a notch trowel at the manufacturer's specified notch size and spacing. The notches create a uniform pattern of adhesive ridges that provide consistent coverage and proper bond thickness. The notch size determines the amount of adhesive deposited, which must match the wall covering weight and porosity requirements. Question 88. After installing vinyl wall covering, a painter notices seams opening up within 24 hours. What is the most likely cause of this defect? A. The wall covering was not booked long enough and continued expanding after installation. B. The adhesive was applied too thickly causing it to squeeze out from behind the vinyl. C. The wall covering strips were reversed causing the pattern to repel at the seam edges. D. The room temperature was too high which caused the adhesive to dry before proper bonding. The correct answer is A. Seams opening within 24 hours of installation most likely indicates that the wall covering was not booked, relaxed, long enough before hanging. Insufficient booking time means the material continues to expand on the wall after installation, causing the strips to shrink back from the seam as expansion reverses during drying. The manufacturer's specified booking time allows the wall covering to reach full expansion before it is positioned on the wall. Question 89. What special handling requirement applies when installing grasscloth and other natural fiber wall coverings? A. Natural fiber coverings must be soaked in warm water for 30 minutes before pasting. B. Strips must be reverse hung, alternating direction, to minimize visible shade variation. C. The adhesive must be applied only to the wall surface using a roller, not to the backing. D. Strips should be cut from the same roll to ensure consistent color throughout the room. The correct answer is B. Natural fiber wall coverings such as grasscloth must be reverse hung. Every second strip is hung upside down relative to its neighbors, to minimize visible shade variation. Natural materials have inherent color variation from one edge to the other, and reverse hanging distributes this variation evenly across the wall. Without reverse hanging, a noticeable light to dark banding pattern appears at every seam. Question 90. What type of rigid wall covering is commonly installed in hospital corridors and food service areas for impact resistance? A. Fiberglass reinforced plastic, FRP, panels bonded to the wall with panel adhesive. B. Ceramic floor tiles repurposed and adhered to the wall with thinset mortar compound. C. Solid hardwood tongue and groove wainscoting nailed to furring strips on the walls. D. Expanded polystyrene foam panels covered with a thin vinyl decorative facing layer. The correct answer is A. Fiberglass reinforced plastic, FRP, panels are commonly installed in hospital corridors, food service areas, and other institutional settings for impact resistance, moisture resistance, and ease of cleaning. FRP panels are bonded to the wall with panel adhesive and the joints are sealed with matching color molding strips. They meet health code requirements for washable, non-porous wall surfaces in commercial kitchens and healthcare facilities. Question 91. When repairing a damaged section of installed vinyl wall covering, what technique produces the least visible patch? A. Cut a rectangular patch larger than the damage and overlap it on top of the existing piece. B. Double cut a matching patch through both layers simultaneously to create a perfect fit. C. Peel back the damaged area and fill behind it with joint compound to push it back flat. D. Apply a coat of matching paint over the damaged area to camouflage the surface defect. The correct answer is B. Double cutting a matching patch through both the new piece and the existing wall covering simultaneously creates a perfectly fitted repair that is nearly invisible. A piece of matching wall covering larger than the damaged area is placed over the damage with the pattern aligned. Both layers are cut through at once with a sharp blade, the damaged piece is removed, and the patch drops into the exact opening. The seams are rolled flat for a seamless repair. Question 92. What is the purpose of applying a wood conditioner to softwood before staining it with a penetrating oil stain? A. To control stain absorption and prevent blotchy, uneven color on porous softwood. B. To darken the natural wood tone before the stain is applied for deeper final color. C. To harden the wood surface so it resists scratching during the finishing process. D. To seal the wood completely and prevent any stain penetration into the grain at all. The correct answer is A. Wood conditioner controls stain absorption and prevents blotchy, uneven color on porous softwoods such as pine, spruce, and birch. These species have alternating areas of softaly wood and harder late wood that absorb stain at different rates, producing a mottled appearance. The conditioner partially seals the pores, equalizing absorption so the stain penetrates more uniformly. It must be applied and the stain must follow within the conditioner's open time. Question 93. What type of wood filler is used to fill open grain pores in species like oak and walnut before applying a smooth clear finish? A. Standard lightweight vinyl spackling compound sanded flush with the wood surface. B. Two-part epoxy wood filler designed for structural repair of damaged exterior wood. C. Clear silicone caulking forced into the grain pores with a putty knife then smoothed for this application method. D. Pastewood grain filler that is thinned, applied across the grain, and wiped off clean. The correct answer is D. Pastewood grain filler is used to fill open grain pores in species like oak, walnut, ash, and mahogany before applying a smooth clear finish. The filler is thinned to a creamy consistency, applied across the grain with a squeegee or rag, and the excess is wiped off across the grain before it hardens. This fills the pores level with the surrounding wood surface, creating a smooth, glass-like substrate for the clear finish coats. Question 94. When applying a vinyl sealer to bare stained wood before lacquer top coats, what is the correct application procedure? A. Brush a thick coat of sealer and allow 24 hours of drying before light sanding. B. Apply the sealer by spray gun in heavy wet passes to build maximum film thickness. C. Apply a thin layer of sealer using a rag pad and work it into the grain by hand only. D. Spray a light even coat of sealer, allow to dry, then sand lightly with fine grit paper. The correct answer is D. Spraying a light even coat of vinyl sealer, allowing it to dry, and then sanding lightly with fine grit paper, 320 to 400 grit, is the correct procedure. The sealer locks in the stain color and provides a barrier between the stain and the lacquer topcoat, preventing the solvent in the lacquer from disturbing the stain. Light sanding after drying promotes adhesion of subsequent coats and removes any raised grain fibers. Question 95. What is the difference between a penetrating oil finish and a surface film finish when applied to wood? A. Penetrating oil soaks into wood fibers for a natural look, film finishes sit on top as a coating. B. Penetrating oil is typically water-based while film finishes are primarily solvent-based products. C. Penetrating oil provides higher gloss levels than film finishes on all species of wood. D. Penetrating oil is used only on softwood while film finishes are applied only on hardwood. The correct answer is A. A penetrating oil finish, such as tung oil or Danish oil, soaks into the wood fibers, hardening within the wood to provide protection while maintaining a natural look and feel. A surface film finish, such as polyurethane, lacquer, or varnish, sits on top of the wood as a distinct coating layer, building up a visible film that provides a higher gloss, more durable protective barrier. The choice depends on the desired appearance and durability requirements. Question 96. When mixing a custom stain color by blending two compatible oil-based wood stains, what must be done before application? A. Apply each stain separately in alternating coats and let them blend on the surface. B. Add a thickening agent to the blend to prevent the two stains from separating later. C. Mix the stains thoroughly and apply a test sample on scrap wood of the same species. D. Thin the blended stain by 50% with mineral spirits to improve grain penetration. The correct answer is C. Mixing the stains thoroughly and applying a test sample on scrap wood of the same species is essential before applying a custom stain blend. Different wood species absorb stain differently, so the color on the test piece may not match the color in the can. The test sample also verifies that the two stains are truly compatible and will not separate, gel, or produce an unexpected color reaction when mixed. Question 97. When brushing polyurethane varnish onto a large flatwood tabletop, what technique produces the smoothest bubble-free finish? A. Load the brush heavily and apply thick coats to minimize the total number of passes. B. Lay on the varnish with the grain, then tip off lightly with just the bristle tips in one direction. C. Dip only the bristle tips into the varnish and apply across the grain in rapid strokes. D. Stir the varnish vigorously before each application to redistribute settled pigments. The correct answer is B. Laying on the varnish with the grain and then tipping off lightly with just the bristle tips in long, continuous strokes in one direction produces the smoothest, bubble-free finish on flat surfaces. Tipping off pops any small bubbles and levels the film. The brush should not be loaded excessively, and varnish should never be stirred vigorously, only gently folded, to avoid introducing air bubbles that transfer to the surface during application. Question 98. What is the correct technique for applying a wipe-on oil finish such as Danish oil to a piece of fine woodwork? A. Apply a generous coat with a lint-free cloth, let penetrate, and wipe off all excess. B. Spray the oil finish with an HVLP gun at low pressure to build an even film layer. C. Brush the oil on thickly and leave it to soak in overnight without wiping off excess. D. Dip the entire piece of woodwork into a container of the oil finish and hang to drain. The correct answer is A. Applying a generous coat of Danish oil with a lint-free cloth, allowing it to penetrate the wood for the manufacturer's recommended time, and then wiping off all excess is the correct wipe-on application technique. Any oil left on the surface that does not soak in will dry as a sticky, uneven film. Multiple thin coats with wiping between each build a rich, deep finish. Lint-free cloths prevent fiber contamination in the finish. Question 99. A painter has applied oil-based stain to an oak table and notices that the stain is drying with a sticky, uneven film on the surface. What is the most likely cause? A. The stain was not stirred properly and the pigment settled to the bottom of the can. B. The ambient temperature in the workshop was too high and accelerated stain drying. C. The wood conditioner applied before staining sealed the grain pores too completely. D. The excess stain was not wiped off within the manufacturer's recommended open time. The correct answer is D. A sticky, uneven film indicates that excess stain was not wiped off within the manufacturer's recommended open time. Penetrating oil stains are designed to soak into the wood and be wiped clean, leaving color only within the grain. If excess stain is left on the surface past the open time, it begins to dry as a surface film that remains tacky and uneven. The solution is to re-wet the surface with fresh stain or compatible solvent and wipe off immediately. Question 100. What type of spray gun is most commonly used for applying lacquer finishes in a professional wood finishing shop? A. An airless spray pump operating at 2000 psi for maximum material output per hour. B. A turbine-driven HVLP system with a heated hose for viscosity control of the lacquer. C. A conventional or HVLP spray gun fed by a compressed air supply for fine atomization. D. A handheld aerosol spray can of pre-mixed lacquer for quick touch-up applications. The correct answer is C. A conventional or HVLP spray gun fed by a compressed air supply is most commonly used for applying lacquer finishes in professional wood finishing shops. These guns provide the fine atomization needed for thin, even lacquer coats and the precise control required for quality furniture and millwork finishing. HVLP guns are increasingly preferred for their higher transfer efficiency and reduced overspray, which improves both material usage and air quality. If you're finding these questions helpful, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. It helps other apprentices find this resource too. Now let's continue. Question 101. When spraying a conversion varnish on kitchen cabinets, what environmental condition must be maintained during application? A. High humidity above 80% to slow the drying time and allow the finish to level. B. Ambient temperature below 10 degrees Celsius to extend the pot life of the catalyzed product. C. Complete darkness in the spray booth to prevent UV light from prematurely curing the varnish. D. Controlled temperature between 18 and 25 degrees Celsius with adequate booth air circulation. The correct answer is D. Controlled temperature between 18 and 25 degrees Celsius with adequate spray booth air circulation must be maintained during conversion varnish application. Conversion varnish is a catalyzed product that cures by chemical reaction, and the reaction rate is temperature dependent. Too cold slows the cure and affects film hardness, too warm accelerates the cure and shortens pot life. Adequate air circulation removes solvent vapors for both quality and safety. Question 102. What is the primary purpose of a holding primer, shop primer, applied to structural steel immediately after fabrication? A. To provide the final decorative color to the steel before it leaves the fabrication shop. B. To permanently seal the steel surface so no additional coating system is needed later. C. To provide temporary corrosion protection during storage and transportation to the job site. D. To increase the structural load capacity of the steel member by adding a reinforcing layer for this application method. The correct answer is C. A holding primer, shop primer, provides temporary corrosion protection to structural steel during the period between fabrication and field application of the permanent coating system. Shop primers are typically inorganic zinc or epoxy-based and are designed to protect the blasted steel surface from rusting during storage, handling, and transportation. They are not intended as a final coating and must be compatible with the specified field-applied coating system. Question 103. What is the typical 3-coat industrial coating system applied to structural steel in a corrosive marine environment? A. Latex primer followed by 2 coats of acrylic latex topcoat for flexibility and color. B. Zinc-rich primer, high-build epoxy intermediate coat, and polyurethane topcoat finish. C. Single-component alkyd primer, alkyd intermediate, and alkyd enamel topcoat finish. D. Vinyl wash primer, chlorinated rubber intermediate, and vinyl ester topcoat for gloss. The correct answer is B. The standard 3-coat industrial system for structural steel in corrosive marine environments consists of a zinc-rich primer for cathodic protection, a high-build epoxy intermediate coat for barrier protection and film thickness, and a polyurethane topcoat for UV resistance, color retention, and gloss. This system is widely specified by coating engineers and conforms to SSPC over NACE, now AMPP, coating system guidelines for severe service environments. Question 104. When mixing a two-component epoxy coating, what happens if the painter does not observe the required induction time after mixing? A. The epoxy thickens beyond usable viscosity and cannot be applied to the substrate. B. The color of the mixed epoxy shifts from the specified shade to a darker off color. C. The mixed epoxy separates back into its two components within the application pail. D. The coating may not develop full adhesion, chemical resistance, or cure hardness. The correct answer is D. If the required induction time, also called sweat-in time, is not observed after mixing a two-component epoxy, the coating may not develop full adhesion, chemical resistance, or cure hardness. Induction time allows the resin and hardener to begin their initial chemical reaction and reach a stage where proper film formation can occur. The manufacturer's technical data sheet specifies the required induction time, typically 15 to 30 minutes depending on temperature. Question 105. What does the term dry film thickness, DFT, refer to in industrial coating specifications and quality control? A. The total volume of solvent that evaporates from the wet coating during the drying process. B. The time required for the applied coating to reach a tack-free condition after application. C. The thickness of the cured coating film measured in mils or micrometers on the surface. D. The minimum surface temperature at which the coating can be applied without defects forming. The correct answer is C. Dry film thickness, DFT, is the thickness of the cured coating film measured in mils, thousandths of an inch, or micrometers on the substrate surface. DFT is a critical quality control measurement in industrial coating because insufficient thickness reduces corrosion protection and excessive thickness can cause cracking, solvent entrapment, and premature failure. DFT is measured with magnetic or eddy current gauges and must fall within the specified range. Question 106. How does a painter calculate the required wet film thickness to achieve a specified dry film thickness for an industrial coating? A. Multiply the dry film thickness by the number of coats specified in the coating system. B. Subtract the solvent percentage from the total volume to determine the remaining solids. C. Add 25% to the dry film thickness as a standard overspray allowance for waste. D. Divide the specified dry film thickness by the volume solids percentage of the coating. The correct answer is D. The required wet film thickness, WFT, is calculated by dividing the specified dry film thickness, DFT, by the volume solids percentage of the coating. For example, if the specified DFT is 5 mils and the coating has 50% volume solids, the required WFT is 5 divided by 0.50 is equal to 10 mils. This formula accounts for the solvent that evaporates during drying, which reduces the wet film down to the dry film. Volume solids is found on the manufacturer's technical data sheet. Question 107. An industrial painter measures the surface temperature of a steel tank at 5 degrees Celsius above the dew point. Should coating application proceed? A. No, because the surface temperature must be at least 15 degrees above the dew point. B. Yes, because any temperature above freezing is acceptable for industrial coating work. C. No, because the coating must be heated to match the steel temperature before application. D. Yes, because the minimum requirement is 3 degrees Celsius above the dew point for most coatings. The correct answer is D. Yes, application can proceed because 5 degrees Celsius above the dew point exceeds the minimum requirement of 3 degrees Celsius above dew point specified by most industrial coating manufacturers and SSPC over NACE, AMPP, standards. If the surface temperature drops to within 3 degrees of the dew point, moisture can condense on the surface, causing adhesion failure, blushing, and other defects. Continuous monitoring of surface temperature, air temperature, and relative humidity is required. Question 108. What instrument does an industrial painter use to measure the dew point and determine if conditions are suitable for coating? A. A magnetic pull-off gauge pressed against the steel surface to measure film thickness. B. A sling psychrometer or digital hygrometer to measure wet and dry bulb temperatures. C. An infrared thermometer pointed at the sky to measure radiant heat energy from the sun. D. A surface profile comparator pressed against the blasted steel to measure anchor pattern. The correct answer is B. A sling psychrometer or digital hygrometer is used to measure wet bulb and dry bulb temperatures, from which the dew point and relative humidity are calculated using psychrometric charts or built-in algorithms. These readings, combined with surface temperature measurements from a contact thermometer, determine whether conditions meet the minimum 3 degrees Celsius spread above dew point required for industrial coating application. Question 109. What does the term surface profile mean in the context of abrasive blast cleaning for industrial coating systems? A. The overall shape and dimensions of the structural steel member before coating begins. B. The chemical composition of the steel surface after all contaminants have been removed. C. The peak-to-valley depth of the anchor pattern created by abrasive blast cleaning. D. The visual color difference between the blasted steel surface and the original mill scale. The correct answer is C. Surface profile refers to the peak-to-valley depth of the microscopic anchor pattern created on the steel surface by abrasive blast cleaning. This texture provides mechanical adhesion for the primer coat. Profile depth is measured in mils or micrometers using replica tape or a digital surface profile gauge. Coating manufacturers specify minimum and maximum profile depths for their products. Too shallow reduces adhesion, too deep wastes coating material filling the valleys. Question 110. A coating inspector reports that the DFT readings on a tank are consistently 2 mils below the specified minimum. What should the industrial painter do? A. Accept the readings because a 2 mil deviation is within normal field application tolerance. B. Thin the coating by 20% and apply a third coat to bring the thickness up to spec. C. Remove the entire coating system by blasting and start the application over from scratch. D. Apply an additional coat to build the dry film thickness up to the specified minimum range. The correct answer is D. Applying an additional coat to build the dry film thickness up to the specified minimum range is the correct action when DFT readings fall below specification. Industrial coating specifications define minimum and maximum DFT ranges, and readings below minimum indicate insufficient protection. The additional coat must be applied within the recoat window or after proper surface preparation, abrasion. The coating inspector will remeasure to verify compliance after the additional coat cures. Question 111. What are the two main components of a fiber-reinforced plastic, FRP, lining system installed by industrial painters? A. Polyvinyl chloride, PVC, sheets bonded together with solvent cement at every joint. B. Fiberglass reinforcement cloth saturated with catalyzed resin such as polyester or vinyl ester. C. Aluminum foil laminated to polyethylene film using heat-activated pressure bonding. D. Porcelain enamel tiles bonded to a steel substrate with a high-temperature adhesive. The correct answer is B. A fiber-reinforced plastic, FRP, lining system consists of fiberglass reinforcement cloth, matte or woven roving, saturated with a catalyzed thermosetting resin such as polyester, vinyl ester, or epoxy. The fiberglass provides tensile strength and reinforcement while the resin provides chemical resistance and bonds the layers together. FRP linings are installed in tanks, vessels, and containment areas to protect steel or concrete from corrosive chemicals. Question 112. When installing an FRP lining inside a steel tank, what must be done to the steel surface before the first resin coat is applied? A. Wash the steel with soap and water and allow it to dry overnight before starting work. B. Apply a coat of rust converter and wait 48 hours for full chemical reaction completion for this application method. C. Paint the steel with 2 coats of latex primer and sand between coats before FRP work. D. Abrasive blast to SSP-CSP10 and apply a compatible primer within 4 hours of blasting. The correct answer is D. The steel surface must be abrasive blasted to SSP-CSP10, near white, cleanliness, and a compatible primer must be applied within 4 hours of blasting to prevent flash rust. The blasted and primed surface provides the anchor profile and chemical bonding surface for the FRP resin. Contamination, rust, or inadequate profile under the FRP causes delamination and lining failure, which can lead to catastrophic corrosion of the tank. Question 113. What type of resin is most commonly specified for FRP linings in tanks that store strong acids and corrosive chemicals? A. Standard unsaturated polyester resin catalyzed with methyl ethyl ketone peroxide only. B. Clear epoxy casting resin typically used for decorative applications and craft projects. C. Vinyl ester resin which offers superior chemical resistance to acids and solvents used. D. Phenolic resin that requires heat curing in an autoclave at temperatures above 150 degrees. The correct answer is C. Vinyl ester resin is most commonly specified for FRP linings in tanks storing strong acids and corrosive chemicals. Vinyl ester has superior chemical resistance compared to standard polyester resin due to its molecular structure, which provides fewer ester linkages vulnerable to hydrolysis. It also offers better adhesion to fiberglass reinforcement and higher elongation, which resists cracking from thermal cycling. Corrosion engineering standards specify vinyl ester for aggressive chemical service. Question 114. When catalyzing polyester resin for an FRP lining application, what controls the gel time and cure speed of the resin? A. The amount of MEKP catalyst added to the resin and the ambient temperature during work. B. The brand and color of the fiberglass mat used as the reinforcement in the laminate. C. The ambient air pressure inside the tank where the FRP lining is being installed today. D. The thickness of the steel substrate underneath the FRP lining at the point of application. The correct answer is A. The amount of MEKP, methyl ethyl ketone peroxide, catalyst added to the resin and the ambient temperature together control gel time and cure speed. More catalyst shortens gel time, higher temperature accelerates the exothermic reaction. Painters must calculate catalyst percentage based on working conditions to achieve a gel time that allows adequate working time for wet out and placement of the fiberglass reinforcement before the resin begins to gel. Question 115. During an FRP lining installation, the painter notices air bubbles trapped between the fiberglass mat and the resin layer. What must be done immediately? A. Roll the bubbles out with a ribbed FRP roller before the resin begins to gel and harden. B. Allow the resin to cure, then sand the bubbles flat and apply a topcoat of resin over them. C. Ignore the bubbles as they will dissipate naturally as the resin cures and heats up. D. Add more catalyst to the remaining resin to make it cure faster and trap the bubbles. The correct answer is A. Trapped air bubbles must be rolled out immediately with a ribbed FRP roller, also called a bubble buster roller, before the resin begins to gel. Air voids in the laminate create weak spots that allow chemicals to penetrate through the lining and attack the substrate. The ribbed roller forces air to the surface and compresses the fiberglass mat into full contact with the wet resin, producing a dense, void-free laminate that provides reliable chemical resistance. Question 116. What personal protective equipment is essential when working with catalyzed polyester or vinyl ester resin during FRP installation? A. Standard cotton work gloves and a disposable dust mask for particulate protection. B. A face shield only, as the resin is not harmful once mixed with the catalyst additive. C. Chemical-resistant gloves, organic vapor respirator, safety glasses, and coveralls. D. Hearing protection and steel-toed boots are the only personal protective equipment required for FRP resin work. The correct answer is C. Chemical-resistant gloves, an organic vapor respirator, safety glasses, or goggles, and coveralls are essential personal protective equipment when working with catalyzed polyester or vinyl ester resin. These resins emit styrene vapors that are harmful to the respiratory system and can cause skin sensitization through direct contact. MEKP catalyst is a strong oxidizer that can cause severe eye burns. Provincial occupational health and safety regulations and resin manufacturer SDSs require this level of protection. Question 117. What quality control test is performed on a completed FRP lining to detect voids and delamination before the tank enters service? A. A visual inspection under fluorescent light to identify surface discoloration on resin. B. A pull-off adhesion test at 5 random locations using a portable adhesion gauge device. C. A spark test, holiday detector, at the specified voltage to find pinholes and thin spots. D. A hardness test using a Barkle impressor to verify that the resin has fully cured properly. The correct answer is C. A spark test, holiday detector, at the manufacturer's specified voltage is used to detect pinholes, voids, and thin spots in a completed FRP lining. The electrode passes over the lining surface, and any defect that allows electrical current to reach the conductive substrate triggers an audible and visual alarm. All detected holidays must be repaired before the tank enters chemical service. This is a standard QC test specified by NACE over AMPP and FRP lining manufacturers. Question 118. When stripe coating bolt heads, welds, and edges on structural steel with a brush before the full spray coat, why is this step performed? A. To mark which areas have already been inspected for defects by the coating inspector. B. To build extra film thickness on edges and complex shapes where spray coverage is thin. C. To add a decorative color accent that distinguishes different structural steel members. D. To test the coating adhesion on small areas before committing to the full spray application. The correct answer is B. Stripe coating with a brush builds extra film thickness on edges, bolt heads, welds, and complex shapes where spray coverage is typically thin. These areas have sharp profiles and geometric shapes that cause the spray fan to pass over them without depositing adequate thickness. Brush-applied stripe coats ensure that these critical areas receive the specified DFT. Stripe coating is specified in most industrial coating systems as a mandatory step before spray application. Question 119. What type of roller cover material is required for applying epoxy coatings to industrial concrete floors? A. A phenolic core roller with solvent-resistant nap such as epoxy-compatible polyamide fiber. B. A standard polyester blend roller nap designed for latex wall paint applications. C. A natural sheepskin roller cover for maximum paint pickup and smooth release quality. D. A foam roller cover that produces a completely stipple-free glass smooth coating surface for this application method. The correct answer is A. A phenolic core roller with a solvent-resistant nap such as polyamide, nylon, fiber is required for applying epoxy coatings. Standard polyester and natural fiber roller covers dissolve or swell when exposed to the strong solvents in epoxy coatings, contaminating the finish and causing roller failure. Phenolic resin cores resist solvent attack, and polyamide nap fibers maintain their structure in epoxy and urethane coating solvents. Question 120. When applying high-build epoxy by roller to an industrial floor, how does the painter verify that the correct wet film thickness is being achieved? A. Weigh the roller before and after each loading to calculate the amount of paint deposited. B. Use a wet film thickness gauge, cone gauge, pressed into the wet coating at regular intervals. C. Measure the dry film thickness with a magnetic gauge immediately after each roller pass. D. Estimate thickness visually by the depth of color and opacity of the wet coating applied. The correct answer is B. A wet film thickness gauge, cone gauge or notched gauge, is pressed into the wet coating at regular intervals during application to verify that the correct wet film thickness is being achieved. The gauge has calibrated notches of increasing depth. The highest notch wetted by the coating indicates the WFT. This real-time measurement allows the painter to adjust application rate immediately, ensuring the dried film meets the specified DFT. Question 121. What is the primary advantage of using a high-build coating system on industrial structures compared to a conventional build system? A. High-build coatings are generally less expensive per liter than conventional build products. B. High-build coatings are typically water-based, which eliminates the need for solvent handling. C. High-build coatings dry faster than conventional coatings, allowing immediate recoating times. D. High-build coatings achieve the specified DFT in fewer coats, reducing total application time. The correct answer is D. High-build coatings achieve the specified dry film thickness, DFT, in fewer coats compared to conventional build coatings, reducing total application time, labor costs, and the number of recoat cycles. A single coat of high-build epoxy can achieve 5 to 10 mils DFT, whereas conventional coatings typically achieve 1 to 3 mils per coat. This is particularly advantageous for large industrial structures where scaffold access time is a major project cost. Question 122. An industrial painter notices that a freshly applied epoxy floor coating is developing small craters, fisheyes, across the surface. What is the most likely cause? A. The epoxy was mixed with too much hardener, causing an accelerated exothermic reaction. B. Silicone or oil contamination on the concrete surface is repelling the wet epoxy coating. C. The ambient temperature dropped below the minimum application temperature during cure. D. The primer coat underneath was not fully cured before the epoxy topcoat was applied. The correct answer is B. Small craters, fisheyes, in a freshly applied epoxy floor coating are most commonly caused by silicone or oil contamination on the substrate surface. Silicone has extremely low surface tension and repels the wet coating, creating circular craters as the coating pulls away from contaminated spots. Sources include silicone-based mold release agents, lubricants, and cleaning products. The surface must be thoroughly decontaminated with solvent wiping before coating application. Question 123. When applying intumescent fireproofing coating to structural steel columns, what determines the required dry film thickness? A. The fire resistance rating required and the steel section size specified by the engineer. B. The aesthetic preference of the building architect for the final appearance of the column. C. The ambient temperature in the building during normal operating conditions year-round. D. The color of the topcoat that will be applied over the intumescent coating for decoration. The correct answer is A. The required dry film thickness of intumescent fireproofing coating is determined by the fire resistance rating required, expressed in hours, and the steel section size, expressed as HP over A or W over D ratio, specified by the structural engineer. Smaller steel sections require thicker intumescent coatings to achieve the same fire rating as larger sections because they heat up faster. Manufacturer thickness tables cross-reference fire rating with section factor to determine the required DFT. Question 124. What instrument is used to measure the dry film thickness of a non-magnetic coating applied on a steel substrate? A. A micrometer caliper placed directly on the coating surface at multiple locations tested. B. An optical magnifying comparator that visually estimates the coating thickness applied. C. A magnetic pull-off gauge or electronic gauge calibrated for coatings on ferrous metal. D. A pin-type moisture meter inserted through the coating into the steel surface below it. The correct answer is C. A magnetic pull-off gauge or electronic, eddy current over magnetic induction, gauge calibrated for coatings on ferrous metal is used to measure dry film thickness on steel substrates. Magnetic gauges measure the distance between a magnet or probe and the steel surface through the non-magnetic coating layer. These gauges must be calibrated on uncoated steel or certified shims before each measurement session to ensure accuracy within the specified tolerance. Question 125. When spraying a two-component polyurethane topcoat on an exterior steel structure, what spray equipment adjustment is critical for proper atomization? A. Reducing the spray tip size by half to slow down the material flow rate to the surface. B. Increasing the hose length to maximum to reduce the pressure at the spray gun nozzle tip. C. Removing the air cap from the spray gun to create a solid stream of coating for penetration for this application method. D. Setting the correct fluid pressure and atomizing air pressure per manufacturer specifications. The correct answer is D. Setting the correct fluid pressure and atomizing air pressure according to the manufacturer's specifications is critical for proper atomization of two-component polyurethane topcoats. Incorrect pressure settings produce poor atomization, resulting in orange peel, dry spray, or runs, inconsistent film thickness, and excessive overspray waste. The technical data sheet specifies the optimal pressure ranges for both conventional and airless spray application methods. Question 126. What is the purpose of using a plural component spray system for applying industrial coatings such as polyurea and fast cure epoxy? A. To reduce the amount of overspray by atomizing the coating at a lower overall pressure. B. To apply single component coatings in thicker layers than possible with standard equipment. C. To heat the coating to a lower viscosity so it flows better on cold steel surfaces in winter. D. To mix the resin and catalyst at the spray gun immediately before application to the surface. The correct answer is D. A plural component spray system mixes the resin and catalyst, hardener, at the spray gun or in a mixing chamber immediately before application. This is essential for fast-reacting coatings like polyurea and rapid cure epoxy that have pot lives measured in seconds to minutes, making pre-mixing in a pot impractical. The system maintains the components separately until the point of application, ensuring consistent mix ratio and eliminating pot life limitations. Question 127. When spraying industrial coatings in a containment area outdoors, what environmental control is required to protect surrounding areas? A. Apply coatings only on days with wind speeds above 30 km per hour for dispersal. B. Spray without containment as industrial coatings are non-toxic and environmentally safe. C. Erect wind screens and tarps to contain overspray and prevent drift to adjacent properties. D. Post warning signs at the site perimeter and rely on natural air dilution for protection for this application method. The correct answer is C. Erecting windscreens and tarps to contain overspray and prevent drift to adjacent properties is required when spraying industrial coatings outdoors. Overspray from industrial coatings can damage vehicles, property, vegetation, and waterways. Provincial environmental regulations and municipal bylaws require containment measures during outdoor spray operations. The containment system must be appropriate for the wind conditions, spray method, and proximity to sensitive receptors. Question 128. What spray technique is used to coat the inside of a pipe or cylindrical vessel with industrial paint using an airless sprayer? A. Insert the gun into the pipe and spray in a random pattern until the surfaces are covered. B. Spray paint into the open end of the pipe and rely on air pressure to push it through the length. C. Use a long lance extension with a rotating nozzle that applies coating evenly as it is withdrawn. D. Fill the pipe completely with liquid coating, drain the excess, and allow the residual film to cure. The correct answer is C. A long lance extension with a rotating nozzle is used to coat the interior of pipes and cylindrical vessels. The lance is inserted to the far end, and the rotating nozzle distributes coating evenly around the circumference as the painter steadily withdraws the lance at a controlled speed. This technique ensures uniform film thickness throughout the pipe length. The withdrawal speed is calibrated to achieve the specified wet film thickness based on nozzle output. Question 129. When applying thermal spray zinc, metallizing, to a steel bridge component, what surface preparation standard must be achieved? A. SSP-CSP5 white metal blast cleaning with a surface profile of 2.5 to 4.0 mils minimum. B. SSP-CSP3 power tool cleaning to remove loose rust and paint from the steel surface. C. SSP-CSP7 brush-off blast cleaning to remove only loose mill scale and rust deposits for this application method. D. SSP-CSP1 solvent cleaning followed by a light hand sanding with 120 grit sandpaper. The correct answer is A. SSP-CSP5 white metal blast cleaning with a surface profile of 2.5 to 4.0 mils is required before applying thermal spray zinc, metallizing. White metal cleaning removes 100% of all rust, mill scale, paint, and contaminants, leaving a bright, uniform metallic surface. The deep angular profile provides mechanical anchoring for the molten zinc particles as they impact and solidify on the steel. This is the highest cleanliness standard and is required for the metallizing bond. Question 130. What type of spray equipment is used to apply thermal spray zinc, metallizing, to steel infrastructure such as bridges? A. A standard airless spray pump loaded with zinc-rich paint and a conventional spray tip. B. A flame spray or arc spray gun that melts zinc wire and projects it onto the steel surface. C. A hot-dip galvanizing bath where the entire steel member is immersed in molten zinc. D. An electrostatic powder coating gun that charges zinc particles and attracts them to steel. The correct answer is B. A flame spray or arc spray gun is used for thermal spray zinc, metallizing, on steel infrastructure. These guns melt zinc wire using either a combustion flame or an electric arc, then project the molten zinc droplets onto the prepared steel surface using compressed air. The zinc solidifies on contact, building up a dense metallic coating. Metallizing provides long-term cathodic protection and is specified for bridges, marine structures, and other critical steel infrastructure. That's all the questions for today. If this helped you prepare, subscribe now and hit the bell. We post exam prep for all Red Seal trades. Visit questionbankhub.com for the complete study guide with additional practice questions. Good luck on your Painter and Decorator Red Seal exam. You've got this.